What's going on, everybody? Brandon Schaefer here. Let's check it out. This is where I was actually painting these sunsets, most of the sunsets from Hawaii. And this sunset isn't the one I'm painting tonight, but this gives you an idea of what the view that I was painting is, right on the edge of the land here on the ocean. So hopefully that gives some kind of context. Like I said, I did not record a lot of video in Hawaii, at least from these painting videos and stuff. I have a little bit of video on some of the episodes, but anyway, I'm going straight for the focal point here on this painting because something like sunsets, I've painted a lot of them, a little bit of them here in Hawaii and stuff. And what I've learned is to go straight for the thing that's going to change the most. And that's the sun. The sun's moving. I only have about 5 minutes to really capture it before it, goes behind the ocean. So I used a lot of yellow ochre, cadmium red, medium, or just cadmium red, mixed with yellow ochre, sometimes a little bit of cadmium yellow. So I just kind of put some washes in there for that. And then I blend it up into an ultramarine blue sky, sometimes a little bit of viridian in the sky. Depends on the sunset, depends on the scene. But most of the time the sky, at the very, very top of the sky, it's ultramarine for the most part. Sometimes you could throw in a little bit of phthalo blue in there just for variety. It depends on how realistic you want to make it. Sometimes I put magenta in the sky, wet into wet with ultramarine. It just gives off these really interesting colors. And it's not necessarily realistic, but it just gives off a kind of mood, kind of a feeling. And I think with this painting, I went a little bit too blue with the ultramarine. I feel like the ocean was probably more green, but I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. Definitely purple waves coming towards us. They're casting shadows. That's a shadow part of it. And the light's super warm. And I always remember seeing purple waves and stuff. It's really cool. So just trying to capture that. And, I thought I was going to leave it where it was at this point. And I was deciding on whether or not to put these clouds that started rolling in. And I decided to put them in. And I think I liked it better without the clouds, but here's a different view of the clouds, just another little clip that I had filmed. Might as well show a different view here of what I'm doing. So yeah, I kind of regret these clouds a little bit, and you'll see why here in a second. So they're warm on the bottom and then cooler on top. A little bit of blue towards the top, mix that wet into wet. And see, I probably should have just left the clouds alone right there. I should have just stopped messing with them. And unfortunately, I really overwork them, and that's what I regret the most. Because what ends up happening with watercolor is like, the more you mess with something, the more you mess with the strokes and things you've done, that you put down, the worse it ends up looking for the most part. That's a general statement. It's not always the case. But in this case, I felt like it was. Anyway, we'll look at the finished version of that at the end of the video here. The correct colors and everything. Because right now I'm using the light from nature and the sun's going down, so get a lot of funny colors and weird light here. So I decided to do another one, and this one was right after, a little bit after the sun was set. There was a really cool color to the sky. It was very green almost. There was a lot of green in the sky. So I was like, okay, I want to try to capture this color. And to be honest, I'm not really happy with this painting at all. But I threw it in here because, I document everything on these watercolor plein air adventures. That's really what it's about for me, is just documenting the journey, documenting what I've done, good or bad. Doesn't matter. It is what it is. But I think there's a lot to learn from these these duds of a painting, these bad paintings. So what was really challenging, I was trying to get an interesting gradient to this sky. And like I said, it was a really weird like yellow-green sky. So I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I want to try to capture this, and didn't really do it. Didn't really get it. I think my washes were too light, and I think it's that weird time of the day where the light changes so dramatically, so quickly. You know, at the beginning of the painting, I might have been painting the correct values, and then by the time I finished the painting, the sky was so much darker. It was hard to really say whether or not I painted it accurately. You know, it's one of those things it's a bummer, but there are some good aspects to this painting that I do enjoy, which I'll show you here in a second. So I painted the sky, and then I'm moving towards the water now, letting the sky dry a little bit as I'm putting the water in. And then I'm going to go hit the sky again with some cloud shapes. So here come the cloud shapes, and I think it's probably my favorite part of the painting are these cloud shapes, which ironically clouds ruined the painting before this one. And in this painting, the clouds were the most interesting thing, or the most well painted thing, at least from my perspective. I guess it's also cool seeing how different the clouds look, you know, compared to the sun setting and then after the sun went down. So, I mean, whether these are good paintings or not, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of trying to capture reality and just a sense of being there. And even though this painting was not a good painting to me, I still remember what I was trying to capture. You know, that's the cool thing, is like it brings back that memory, like, oh, I remember this crappy painting I did. I was trying to capture this really cool color of the sky with these clouds in front of it. And even though I didn't do it successfully, it still brings up that memory. So I think that's pretty cool. And that's the cool thing about these sketches and traveling and doing these kinds of things, is it really makes you aware of what's around you. And it really brings back that memory of you being there at that particular time. You know, if I was just taking photographs here, yeah, I would still probably remember it, but I may not remember it as well, because a painting takes, 20 minutes or so, and I'm looking at observing this nature for 20 minutes. It's not something people normally do. People don't really sit around in one place for 20 minutes and just observe. So that's the cool thing about painting like this. So also the water here was very interesting. So there was a lot of choppy waves and choppy texture to the water, and part of it, half of it was reflecting the sky, and then half of it had these shadows, the shadow color that I'm adding in now, these purples and stuff. So I don't know, it was just really cool, man. I was just trying to capture that. So overall, I mean, it's not a horrible painting. It's just not as interesting as many of the other paintings I did in Hawaii, comparatively. It's not as interesting. It's not as good, I guess. It's not as executed as well. But sometimes you have to do those paintings to, it's going to happen. So, yeah, anyway, I mean, it's not horrible, like I said. So we'll take a look at the finished paintings here. So that's the first one. Not too bad, I guess, those clouds. And there's a second one as well. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. See you in the next one. Take care of yourself. Peace, my friends.